Committee meeting for Tuesday, July 10th. Do we have any public comment today? All right, seeing none, moving on to item 2, approval of the minutes from June 26th. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Moved by Commissioner Korndike. Supported by Commissioner Vonk. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed? All right, moving on to item 3, facilities management performance measurement review. We have Al.
Thanks, Gail. Yeah, it's nice when technology works. Good morning, everyone. Hey, as I walk up here this morning, just a quick personal note. Last year, about this time, I came up and I limped up there, and thanks to the miracle of modern science, God, and a surgeon, I got that new hip and no limp and no pain. So, a little bit different for me than that. And I know you've got a light agenda today, so I'm sure the sky's the limit as far as how long I want to talk. Some people have shared with me that Al, sometimes you talk a little bit too much, but you should have met my brother. My dad always said, you ask Mike what time it is, and he tells you how to build a watch. But no, I should be brief and concise, and I hope it's interesting for you. A little bit of recap on where we are. As Administrative Services Department and Facilities Management, we provide comprehensive facilities management services for all departments with county-owned facilities and leased properties, with the exception of Public Works, Parks, and the Sheriff's Department. However, we do major projects for the Sheriff's Department. We have full capacity, or full facility operations responsibility for this building, the County Administration Building, Health Department, along with its both its clinics and, well, 3 clinics, and the animal shelter and its lab, Human Services Complex, 121 Franklin, Juvenile Services Center, that 1565-seater, along with right next door, the Juvenile Detention Facility, Information Technology Building right across the street, downtown Circuit Courthouse, as well as the 63rd District Court facility, Veteran Services, Cooperative Extension Service, our small Northwest Services Center in Sparta, 82 Ionia, and other miscellaneous county leased or owned facilities and properties and projects as assigned. In total, we take care of about 1.3 million square feet. Looking at that 1.3 million square feet in just a little bit different perspective, that's about 600. That would be equivalent to like 650 2,000 square foot homes. And there's 30 of us on our team, but we have a lot of support from other departments too. Essentially, we have the pleasure of providing facilities for most other county departments who present their respective performance measures and updates to you, thus permitting the Health Department and its clinics and animal shelter to provide immunizations for children, conduct health and environmental compliance work, and take in stray and unwanted pets and adopt them to loving homes. It permits our court system to be able to deliver fair and equal justice in both circuit court and district court in a safe environment. We provide an environment for where juvenile detention hopefully fosters good behavior in the future, allows the friend of the court to assist as child support custodians, enables equalization to conduct orderly and accurate property appraisals, allows the county clerk to be able to process voter registrations and oversee elections, protect county court records, death and birth and vital records. Such a list goes on, but my point is we really do provide some diverse and dynamic facility for these departments to function as they need to. As a refresher on some of our major projects that you're all familiar with, the newer L&M areas of the correctional facility, the Veteran Services Facility build-out, the renovation of 1565 Cedar Street facility for use by Circuit Court as their new Juvenile Services Center, the 6th-floor courtrooms build-out for our new judge, correctional facility kitchen replacement, as well as work release entry corridor in a combined project, and the commencement of our replacement of a portion and addition to the juvenile services facility. So today we review our performance measures and share a little bit about how we do all this. By we, I mean the facilities management staff, consisting of a team of 30 very dedicated and wonderful people. Our group works with county purchasing staff, fiscal services, legal staff, administration, and of course the respective departments that we serve, to do virtually whatever it takes to take care of staff that works here, the public that visits us, and nurture each facility with the care they deserve. All these folks on our team have a myriad of responsibility, and they're all very much appreciated, and I know you appreciate them all because they hear it from you, and they hear it from the departments that they serve. So thank you for that. As we share our performance measures and share with what's going on in facilities management, of course, we want to align with your priorities, and we'll share some of our key performance metrics, significant budget issues, significant accomplishments, key collaborations, and a look ahead. Our priority alignment matches our mission statement, and of course, where you want us to be with efficient use of resources, safe community, proactive, innovative government, high quality of life. We provide safe, quality, value-based facilities management services to Kent County, and there's a sample of some of your landmark facilities. We try to do it in a very cost-efficient manner. If you want the bar raised higher, it simply takes more money. It's not like anyone's being lazy. There's just a cost, just like a home, the fit and finish. Some homes have a little fancier fit and finish, but they're still a home. You have the numbers in front of you, and you see some of those. We've been pretty consistent, and been very fortunate. We've done some project work, not major project work I'm speaking of, but some of the smaller projects that we've done. Quite competitive. Thank you so much always to our purchasing department, who really provides good value-based goods and services for us. I shared with you, I think, 2 years ago when I was here about our energy management. Energy management is best managed by us for consumption. We can only do so much to control price. We consistently meet with representatives from our natural gas supplier and Consumers Energy for electrical to make sure we're on the best rate plan. We've installed capacitors to make sure we're not drawing too much on the power factor. We're always subject to Mother Nature and what Mother Nature cares to do with heat in the summer and cold in the winter. We try to maintain our facility set points at less than $2 per square foot. We're creeping up there. Good news on that to some degree. Natural gas looks like the prices are going to remain relatively flat for the purchase of gas. It's the transportation of the natural gas through the distribution lines that will continue to rise a little bit, maybe as much as 3% forecasted for the next year and 2020. Some of our key goals and metrics include building projects, land acquisition, sale, facility renovation, construction projects, and our lease program. And we try to maximize quality and minimize cost for long-term asset preservation. With that, we always have, I'm a little superstitious. We always come within budget. Of course, in all fairness, sometimes you have to scale back the project a little bit, and you can't do as much as you'd like to because we're sometimes budgeting a year or more in advance on some of these projects. A significant budget issue. I'm not a prophecy, and I can't positively predict the future, but we do follow trends and speaking with our contractors, vendors, and suppliers. Costs for building operations in the near term in 2019 and 20 will rise for a myriad of factors, but more specifically, it's the costs for goods and services. And as labor rates go up, the cost to provide the services, anywhere from custodial services to laying bricks and mortar for masons. One of our significant accomplishments that I always like to share is a commitment that administration and you all supported, building automation system. Almost 20 years ago, we started with our automated logic system. It's some people would say it's the Cadillac of building automation systems. They're all quite competitively priced, but really in using it, it's more of like the Rolls-Royce as far as efficiency and use. And it continues to allow us to maximize and optimize our buildings for efficiency. So we continue to do that. You can only get so much water out of a rock, but still we're able to react rapidly as forecasts change and take advantage of all efficiencies we possibly can through our building automation system. There's millions of dollars invested into that software, lots of training for our folks, and technology has really saved us a lot with that. Another significant accomplishment is the build out of our sixth floor, the north tower of the sixth floor, for two more courtrooms and judicial suites. They're serving us well. We came in well under budget, and I'll always be grateful and thankful and appreciative. Same thing, I guess. But facility staff, the contractor was a glass slipper as far as the size of the project and their capabilities and the subcontractors they could have on that project to help us come within budget. But perhaps one of the largest things was the judiciary and their staff understanding of our project and allowing us to work so much in the daytime, because originally they were very concerned about sound telegraphing into the court recording equipment, so on and so forth. So we were able to do about 90% of the work during normal working hours. It saved us literally hundreds of thousands of dollars on that build-out project. And there was a few times we got a call from some courtrooms that were in session, and they were doing something that was like borderline, but generally we were very well received. Sheriff's Department did some extra work with us as far as permitting access for the contractors in the morning, and through some back doors and opening up windows and so on and so forth. So that project was very successful for you. Another project that is in the works now is the juvenile detention facility. It's renovation expansion. A, B, and C units from the early 60s will eventually be raised. They're occupied right now. We tore down we raised what was old court side over there at our juvenile detention facility. The old court side was raised to make room and take advantage of all the existing infrastructure of the existing juvenile detention facility. And that project is ongoing now. It will wrap up. It's a 3-year project, and I'll show you the project schedule and timeline here. And we will start occupying it in September. We'll start occupying some of it, but the project won't be completed until middle of 2019. That's when we raise the A, B, and C units. We're essentially increasing the size of juvenile detention by about 1/3, which is really pretty good, because you look at the population that's expanded in here, and Andy Thalhammer and Stacy McGinnis, the superintendent of detention, could address to you the programs that they have for the kids, but as the outsider that just provides the facility for them to do it, I can assure you, you can be very proud of what Kent County offers for kids when they're in juvenile detention. I can understand the fact that some people might be of the thought of the kids did something wrong, they need to go to jail, bread and water. Hopefully that's the vast minority of people that would have that thought. The way Kent County program operates, I think you could all be proud of, is more nurturing and caring to try to get those kids out of that stream. And we have a professional facility for them to be in. They're treated with dignity and respect. They're well cared for, well fed, and educated all the time that they're in there. The environment that you're providing with them with this a little over $20 million project is, I think, money very well spent, and it was certainly necessary. The A, B, and C units they've outlived their useful life. This is what it will look like when expansion and renovation is complete. It's all on one level. Right now, A, B, and C units have multiple levels. There's stairs to climb, challenging. This is more ADA accessible, and it's just easier to flow with the kids and provide a good environment for them. These are some renderings. This isn't actual, but this is a rendering of what it will look like once it's completed. Everything from their central control, exam rooms, youth specialist office, and a new gym. Rather than expanding the existing gym, we kept the existing gym and just added another smaller one. That works very well for their programs. And I was thinking, what's a good way that I can really convey to the commissioners? Wayman's been there a number of times throughout the progress of the project, but wanted to kind of show you the enormity of this facility, because sometimes, because it's a few blocks north of the Fuller campus, it's kind of off to the side. But this is an overview. I think this is somewhere between 300 and 400 foot view looking from the west to the east. And on the right side of your screen is the addition. The darker, it's a ballasted roof. The darker roof, back, but the stone on top of the ballasted roof is a little bit different gray. So you can kind of see the dividing line. This is where we're at now. This is not conceptual. This is where we're at in the point of construction. And to show you some more angles, we're able to kind of move around here. This is, again, coming in from the west. This is coming from the east. That's the Juvenile Services Center, completed last year. And then, again, from the east, going parallel with Cedar Street, you can see the older part on the right side, the 94, 95 area. And then on the left, the new fully adhered EPDM roof that's on the other side here. The gym is sticking up. You can see about the same size. This is about a 2-minute video, and I'll just narrate this, which is a lot better than music because you don't want me to sing. Some other views, as what we tried to show is each elevation and then kind of come in and show it to you. So we show you the elevation and then come in and show how it blends into the rest of the facility. Another angle from the corner. And the elevations, and where you see windows, there's provide borrowed light from the windows into the day rooms where the kids are at. And they move about the facility a lot during the day. Yes, they spend time at nighttime in their rooms sleeping, but during the day they're moved a lot about the facility. They're not just in their rooms. They're in the day rooms where there's activities and learning centers and into classrooms. This is parallel with Cedar Street, the elevation there. Again, it's all one story as far as occupancy. There is some penthouse areas where mechanical systems are located at. There's a ton of plumbing in any type of detention facility. We have chases for our staff to do maintenance work to the water supplies, drains, electrical systems. And the project budget for this is $20.5 million. And in the top right corner, you see the Juvenile Services facility, Juvenile Services Center. Then, of course, the quite black roof, that's the addition. The 95 part in the support services area is the ballasted roof system. Near the left side, the front entry, some of this renovation work will enhance that front entry. That's where the awning is there. And then that at the top center, that's still all county property, kind of that square right there, a little bit rectangular, where Arbor Circle is. You remember a couple years ago that 50-year lease was expiring for Arbor Circle, but then we granted them, I think it was a 7-year extension, and they're a couple years into that. And they're making provisions to move off that, providing us an opportunity to have some of our property back for in the future. We have some space if the expansion for this or other county services were necessary. Part of our performance metrics and measures would include some key collaborations. The one that always rings with me is this facility with the City of Grand Rapids, the City-County Complex. It was called a Hallmark in Cooperation back in 1969. Spectrum Health, utilizing our former Kent Community Hospital. Same with Network 180, using the old Nurses Lodge, plus an addition that they put on there. The collaboration effort that we have with the City of Grand Rapids at our courthouse across the street. To another degree, not on here, but collaboration with Grand Rapids Township at where our 63rd District Court is located also. The Michigan State Police Lab at the Fuller Complex. While we don't maintain their facility for them, we do maintain their drives and grounds. And the South Clinic with MCDC Dental Clinic at the South Clinic that you're all familiar with. A little bit of a look ahead. At some point, we need to do something, or we will probably do something with our North County Clinic. That's a leased facility. Population continues to grow. Oftentimes it's said if you can afford to lease, you can afford to own. Sheriff's North Substation. Times have changed, population has grown, the needs up there are quite obvious. Parks Administration, you're aware of that. 82 Ionia, consideration given on that at your pleasure. Employee parking on north end of Ottawa, a little more convenient. That's with the sale of our lot that was on Monroe. We have an opportunity to provide another parking lot for our staff. City-county buildings HVAC, that's a 3-year project in the city and county administration building and City Hall, and that replaces a lot of the systems from 1969. It provides an opportunity for efficiency, better control systems, and less breakdowns. So we're looking forward to that, and that will be an inconvenience to everyone during that 3-year period, and we'll probably need to hold commission meetings off-site for a period of time, maybe even a couple months during that time, but that's probably about a year away. Facility safety, always a concern, and staff ergonomics. Some things in the office environments continue to change, sit-stand workstations and the like, ergonomic seating, footrests and the like, things to take care of people as they're in chairs and standing, working with computer environment rather than desks and typewriters like it was prior to the introduction of PCs. I'm happy to answer any questions or make something up.
All right, thanks, Al. Any questions for Al today? Commissioner Korndike.
Thanks for all the work you do, Al. Really appreciate it.
We have a great team, thanks to you all and HR.
So I'm looking at the last page, page 4 of the information you supplied us. The on the last item, 2016 expected and actual. It says dollar amount of CIP and building projects managed. In 16 it was 29 million and you managed 4.5, and in 17 it was 21.5 and you managed 9.1. So what were those projects that you decided not to do? That we had inspected?
No, it's not that we didn't do them.
Well, we maybe okay.
It's
done a lot cheaper then.
No, it was total project cost and what was spent during that year.
I see. So we're just that far on those projects.
Yeah, that was like L&M building finished up, but then we started juvenile detention. Most of that is juvenile detention and other CIP projects that we've got.
So farther down next 2 or 3 years, those will come up to that number eventually?
Yes, or you'll add something more to it,
Okay.
which is fine. I'm just saying that's.
I just want to make sure
That's
that
a dynamic
we're
number.
doing what we had expected to do. We're pretty close to it.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Commissioner Talon.
Thank you, Chair. A bunch of questions, but
Good.
first appreciation for the great facilities that we have, and looking forward to the completion of the juvenile detention. That's a cool project. I was just thinking, I drive by there so often on the way back and forth to Network 180 meetings, but
Unless you drive down Cedar,
Right.
you miss it.
I'm always in a hurry to get to the meeting and
Yeah.
then a hurry to get home to dinner after. Anyway, several questions. One, the employee parking on Ottawa, when, do you have a sense of a timeline for when that will happen?
Well, we want to. Michigan State has graciously offered us to remain where we're parking now, even though they formally own the property now at our North Monroe lot. They formally own that, but they've given us, I think it's a 3 to 5 year lease with 6 months heads up. We have an option for the next 5 years to purchase the one at 601 Ottawa, it's up the street here on the Dash Bus line. However, the sticking point on that is Planning Commission has approved that 601 Ottawa property to become a parking lot. But that's good for a year. Project would need to commence in a year. They have shared with us that they would be open to a 6-month extension to that, so that would be 18 months from we got that permission with the city of Grand Rapids in March. So sometime in the next year, we might have to at least commence that project, and then that would be dependent upon, because it would be asphalt, it would be dependent upon, not doing it in the wintertime because we need access to asphalt.
So is there a potential that it might not happen if we have
No,
5-year option?
we'll have to have parking.
Okay.
Yeah, and I know some people aren't fond of parking, but that parking has served us well since the 70s, and we really need parking for our staff. And it's about, if Michigan State wouldn't have needed that, and that whole property exchange wouldn't have needed to happen to make it all work out for everybody, we would have just kept what we had and stayed off the radar. But really what we're doing is I think we're gaining 6 or 8 spots, but really we're just trading one for the other in when we're completed with it.
Kind of related to that, when I drive by the former now county property right on Monroe, between Monroe and the river, several years now it's been staging area for that construction for the Department of Transportation. Do we get any compensation for the use of that property? I've always been kind of curious about that.
No.
We just let them use it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then 2 more, if I could. The page 3 of the document that we received, the number of square feet maintained by facilities management went down from 2015 to 2016 by about 100,000. What came off of our inventory, just out of curiosity? Well, it wasn't actually 100,000, it was about 50,000 square feet less. So the page 3, the number of square feet maintained by facilities management went down. I was just curious what we lost there.
Oh, we did some adjustment with.
Not a big deal.
I'm drawing a little bit of a blank on that.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
We can find out later. Yeah.
Was it the clinics that I don't know.
No, I'm drawing a little bit of a blank on that, unless it comes to mind with somebody. No, I'm drawing a little bit of a blank on that, but when we added them all up, I'd have to revisit some of that. I'm sorry.
The last thing is something that I've mentioned before, I've talked about it before, and that's my ongoing kind of concern that we try to move toward, instead of measuring what our cost is per square foot for energy, to look at our units of energy per heating degree day, because that's really the measure of efficiency, and we don't have control over the weather. So if we factor for the weather and measure it that way, then we can really see whether over time we're improving our efficiency as far as energy use. So I've talked about that before. I wonder if you're
Yeah. No.
moving in that direction, or...
Well, I'm challenged a little bit on that because sometimes what happens, Commissioner, is hours change. Like friend of the courts is now we're going to do some evening times, so building systems need to stay on. So the numbers that you would receive on that are kind of skewed. We go over to juvenile detention, it's operating round the clock, every day of the year. And I see your point, but I don't think we're going to. We've got things optimized so much that to dial, and I can say this with 100% confidence, in almost every facility, to change anything from where we're at, to try to get literally water out of a rock would be so marginal, and all you'd have is staff and visitors very unpleasant with the temperature. We've optimized things so well. 20 years ago, you'd notice dynamics as you tried to zero in on that number, but right now the needle would barely move throughout the year.
So I guess my question back is, how do you know that? How do you know that we've optimized it so well? If we don't have the data, if you can't present to us that here's what we were using per heating degree day this year, how do you know that we are as efficient as we
Because
can
I'll
be?
use the 350,000 square foot, almost 350,000 square foot courthouse as an example. It was engineered and designed to operate with the systems at all these sets, and 2 years after moving in there, we halved it. We literally operated in half.
Have what?
Half of our consumption. We reduced it by half 2 years after we moved in
The
there.
cost or the consumption?
Consumption,
Okay.
yeah.
So you do have that data,
Yeah, some
I
of
mean,
that
was
goes
that
back, some of that
consumption-
goes back quite a bit.
but it wasn't because it was a warmer year that you halved the consumption. You know that.
No, it's just optimizing, we call it optimizing the systems. We've got things pretty well tuned as far as,
Okay.
we could spend a lot of time doing that, but the needle would barely move, would be my thought. And if it was something that we had to do, quite honestly, something else wouldn't get done.
All set?
Any other questions?
Yep, Commissioner Skaggs.
Thank you, Chair. Thanks, Al. On the first page, under significant accomplishments, we have completion of the comprehensive space needs study for county facilities. We have that?
We did that in 2015.
Oh, in
End of
2015.
2015, and
So this is
been
not the
working,
new
been
one that
working
we're
from
doing.
it since.
Okay. All right, just needed that clarification.
Commissioner Ponstein.
Thank you, Chair Holter. Geothermal systems, we have them in operation in a couple sites.
We have two geothermal systems. Our first geothermal system was introduced at our 63rd District Court in, we opened in November of 2009. And that geothermal system is north of the building. All the wells are located underneath the parking lot. They're 300 feet deep. And it's what you call a closed loop system. And it operates very, very efficiently. It very, very low on natural gas consumption, higher on electricity because you're moving a lot of pumps. But overall, I think it was a 10-year payback, and it looked like really about an 8-year payback in reality, because the system was, you can get, not all soils are the same. We just happened to hit a target-rich environment, so to speak, for heating and cooling, and it was built to the right size. And then we were able to secure energy grant funding for L&M building at the Sheriff's Department. I think that came online in 2013. So L&M building of the correctional facility is also on geothermal system. Yeah.
it again?
Yeah, not adverse to it. Both of those projects, it was introduced a little bit later to say, hey, let's do it. So it was a little bit challenging to redesign and say, let's do it. You all have to accept that the initial cost is higher. And when I look at something like that, I try to look at a 10-year payback. And usually they come in at right at a 10-year payback. So it's kind of a gray area. It's hard to really drive a stake into it to say this is what we have to do. But even the long-term forecast for natural gas continues to be historically low. So it's harder to justify now. I just said harder, not totally hard, but a little bit harder to justify now. But I'd have no aversion to doing it again. It's working well. You need to be really careful at your engineering and do test wells to make sure your ground can truly remove the heat in the summertime and give you heat in the wintertime.
Okay, I think we have
Some systems fail like that.
one more question. Commissioner Steck?
Thank you, Chair. Good morning, Neil. 82 Aonia, I know that the CIP looks at $30,000 of new carpeting for this year in that project or that site. Are there any other conditions or projects on the horizon at 82 that are going to force us to make a decision on that building?
There's another CIP that we need to do, and that is repairs to our parking deck. It's supported with cables and tendons, so to speak, as that's what they call them, is tendons. They're cables. So we need to do some waterproofing to help take care of those cables. That's part of the CIP for 2019 also. We have I think it's quite an expensive valve over there that supplies dry system for that parking deck, fire protection system. If that valve fails, right now it's kind of like a mousetrap. It's set and it will function. It's been tested to say it will function. Every year you have to test that mousetrap and make sure it works. So it could fail, forcing us to do that work. This year, no, in 2019, we'll do some testing on our transformers over there and motor control centers for electrical distribution, the main electrical distribution. We'll do some testing. They're getting old.
But those are projects that if we have to replace them, the
They're substantial.
return on the investment is so long that we have to make a decision about that building.
There really wouldn't be return on that because it's just pass through of the current. A transformer is a transformer. It's not more efficient than another. Similar to this building, some heating and cooling. Yes, we replaced the chiller, but all the VAV, the variable air volume boxes that are located throughout all the floors of the facility, they're vintage, so there will continue to be more expenses, and some of those we could get caught into having to spend a goodly amount in a hurry if we don't plan ahead and replace before they fail.
So, am I looking at it right, though, to suggest that at some point we're either going to invest the money because we're going to hold it for a longer period of time, or we're not going to invest it because we're going to turn it over?
I concur with that.
Well, I'm looking for when is that time? What's that date? And how far into the future can we go before we have to do that? You said last year, yeah.
I shared at the beginning of this, I'm not a prophecy. I can't tell. We can do due diligence. It's kind of like looking at your roof at home. When's the best time to replace it? Well, probably the year before it starts to leak. Sometimes we're not to the point of obvious failure, but we're hearing from the contractor that services our fire protection valve. Yep, we're good for another year. We'll look. It's in 2019. We look as we did 4 years ago at our transformer and motor control centers and see where they're at, and then you.
Yeah, but those are not entirely predictable, as you point out. But if they did fail, the cost of replacing them kind of puts us in a difficult position, doesn't it? Because we're either going to have to then invest a significant amount of money.
The cost is a concern for Wayman, of course, and fiscal services, and both of those departments, both Wayman and our fiscal services director and budget director would support gee whiz, paying for it is one problem. In the meantime, it's going to be 2 weeks, and we have no electricity to the building. And the continuity of service is concerning to me.
All right. I just have one question and maybe a comment. On the last page, the number of leases at 25, can I get a list? Are those are properties we're leasing, or those are properties we lease to someone else? I assume we are leasing them.
Both, it's a combination of both.
Okay.
And
Can I get a list of those?
Sure.
And then
Yeah.
also, when we get ready to do the space needs study, I think I've mentioned this a few times, I'd really like us to look at the utilization of the space and not just the square footage currently in use. I think that times have changed, and we don't need square footage for filing cabinets anymore, and I would really like to encourage us to really focus on that. So, thank you, Al, for everything you do. Great report. On to item 4. Board of Commissioner Foreign Trade Zone Board appointment. Wayman?
Yes, this is a request for the board to appoint me to the Foreign Trade Zone Board to fill an unexpired term ending December 31, 2018. Due to the retirement of former County Administrator Darrell DeLabio, a vacancy occurred on the Foreign Trade Zone Board pursuant to the Kent, Ottawa, Muskegon Foreign Trade Zone Board enabling agreement. The appointment must be filled by an administrative staff member. Historically, the appointment has been filled by the county administrator. County administrator, me, is recommended to be filled as a staff member vacancy on the Foreign Trade Zone Board ending December 31, 2018.
So moved.
Board.
Motion by Commissioner Korndike, support by Commissioner Vonk. Any questions or comments on this? Commissioner Ponstein?
Chair Bolter, sounds like an exciting committee. How active is it?
I think there's not a lot of action on that, not like Mental Health Board or your board, Land Bank, but enough there that would warrant our participation.
All right, Commissioner Vonk.
Thank you, Chair. Wayman, what's the makeup of that board?
We have members from Muskegon County. There's representatives from Muskegon County, Ottawa County, GVSU, and of course the county. That's the makeup.
I served on that years ago, maybe a liaison for Darrell, I'm not sure, and Commissioner Voorhees served on that
Yeah.
as well. We met
Yeah.
quarterly, and
Yeah.
I don't know whatever happened to that, but
Yep.
we were working on things out at the airport, and I don't know if that's still active or.
Yeah, they still have that relationship with the airport. It's all about minimizing the cost of trade and so forth, and making sure that we keep manufacturing here locally. So it's an important asset for the region. I'm not sure why the commissioners moved off that were appointed at one point, but I'll check into that and find out as I get back involved.
Okay, and is there any reason to have an airport liaison on that as well?
No, I would say yes, because of the regional nature of the airport. I mean, we've been talking with the airport also about their airport in Muskegon, so I think it would make sense to consider
Okay,
it.
well, Dan's here, so he can carry the message back to the board.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
All right, any other questions?
For an update on that.
All right, we have a motion and a second. All in favor of this appointment, say aye. Aye. All opposed? All right, motion passes on to item 5, Health Department Amendment of Section 701 of the Kent County Animal Control Regulations. Wayman.
Yes, this is a request to approve a proposed change to Section 701 of the Animal Control Regulations to add an exception to the existing language. The Health Department is proposing to amend Section 701 the regulations to allow for unrestrained dogs in certain specified areas. The proposed new language would add the following to the end of Section 701. It includes a person may allow a dog in his or her custody to be unrestrained within the boundaries of a park designated for off-leash activity by a unit of government. Dog is under the custodian's control and in compliance with all requirements of this regulation, within the property boundaries of a privately owned parcel with the advance permission of the owner or as otherwise in compliance with applicable state law. The public hearing was held on June 13, 2018 community input was gathered, all of which was in support of the above proposed change to Section 701 of the Kent County Animal Control Regulations.
All right, thank you. Do I have a motion? Moved by Commissioner Ponstein, seconded by Commissioner Skaggs. Any questions or comments? Commissioner Steck.
Thank you, Chair. I guess I didn't look at the old 701. Is this all new language and there were no exceptions in the old regulation?
Matthew?
And Adam can-
Adam.
We've got Adam and me here, so hopefully we'll be able to answer any question. There were no exceptions in the old language.
So a dog was required to be trained or under leash at all times?
Correct.
When not on their own personal property?
Correct. If it,
So, then one question. You can be in the dog park without the leash or unrestrained, as long as the dog is under the custodian's control. What does that mean to be under the custodian's control?
I'll let you handle that one.
Yeah, sure. So, great question. Thank you for it. Control is really the big subjective word in all of this, and really it's a judgment call on the part of our animal control officers, which is a number of judgment calls that we ask them to do on a regular basis. We've talked about some principles of what control looks like. We have studied best practices from other parts of the country as well. Generally speaking, that would mean within sight of and under the verbal command of.
So an obedient dog?
What's that?
An obedient dog?
Yes, yes. And so aggression and obedience and what at-larges are also subjective things that we really entrust these animal control officers to determine in the field based on their professional judgment. And we work with them, we train them, we cross-train them with other jurisdictions as well so that there is a broader, universal, defendable understanding of what that term means. And we also recognize that as technology improves with remote control and collars and other devices, that may vary a little bit and evolve over time.
I can just follow up. This will not change, as far as you know, this is not going to change the rule that if that dog bites someone else, whether they're on the park or not in the park, there's still liability for that bite.
Absolutely. That remains in place. All the other requirements of the animal control regulation remain unaffected.
Commissioner Korndike.
Thank you, Chair. So otherwise compliant with applicable state law, does that mean that they have a license? So we assume
Yes.
all the dogs in the dog parks are licensed?
Yes.
And that's enforced by
By,
our department?
yes, by the
Go to
animal
the
control.
dog parks and make sure those dogs are licensed?
In the same way that we enforce that regulation anywhere else in the county.
Okay.
Yeah, so we won't have a,
Because the
24/7
big thing in the
presence.
county, and I've heard from a couple of people that complain about the number of dogs that we don't have licensed in the county. And I'm not sure what that number is. You probably have a better estimate than I, but maybe only a third of the dogs are licensed in Kent County. Is that?
I don't think it's that high. I think it's probably 15-20%.
So to be licensed means the dog has to have it shot, so you know.
Exactly.
So.
Yeah.
Commissioner Skaggs.
Thank you, Chair. I'm just going to continue on with that line of questioning. And I'll go with subsection, or with section 2. Where within the boundaries of a privately owned parcel, does that also include that the dog must be under custodian's control or fenced in?
Under control, yes. And so these exceptions were driven by best practice, but also from what we had heard from our animal control officers and complaints that we've received in the past of neighbors complaining about a dog being off leash on a neighbor's property and not being the property owner who owned those dogs, but a guest of a family member of that property owner. So we want to make it clear that a property owner has the right to grant permission to another person to have their dogs off leash on their property, so long as those dogs are under control and contained within that property.
Okay, but that's not listed in number 2. Like it is in number 1. Is that an oversight then? Is that something that we should add into this?
Pulling up the language here. within the property boundaries of a privately owned parcel with the advance permission of the owner. No, so that otherwise, control is a component of the regulation at large. So they're still required to have that dog under control.
So that's elsewhere in something that I guess it would have been helpful to have had this whole section. But you're saying that somewhere else in section 701, it has this language about custodians' control or otherwise constrained?
It's a subsection.
Yeah, the Section 01 says a person who owns or has custody or control of a dog shall prevent the dog from running at large. A person who owns or has custody or control of a dog shall, at any time the dog is off that person's property, restrain the dog with a lead of no greater than 6 feet in length. And so the exception provides these opportunities to have a dog off leash in these settings, but still under control. And that's also specified elsewhere throughout the regulation, that maintaining control of and preventing a dog from being aggressive is prohibited.
Then at least one or two other questions. Pardon my ignorance. I guess this is for Roger, but how many dog parks do we have in our county park system? Or are these only city parks?
Well, so right now, Commissioner, and Roger can answer this too probably, but the animal control regulation that we have as a county doesn't really allow for dog parks because there are no exceptions. So what we're doing here is actually allowing for those dog parks to actually be in compliance, number one. And the second thing, it then provides us an opportunity to create a different type of dog park experience at a future time for off-leash dog parks. So this is really a twofer, if you will. One, puts all these other dog parks back into compliance, and it then allows us to have a different type of dog park in the future if we so choose.
And then I guess if we're allowing something that probably most people felt was already allowed since Grand Rapids has dog parks, how are we going to go about publicizing these changes to citizens? And while we're at it, I'll follow up on Commissioner Korndike, and how are we encouraging them to get dog licenses?
You want to go for that one first?
Yeah, so we've been encouraging them through work with veterinarians' offices, the townships. We have included that in so much of our messaging. Our License Leash Love campaign that we've had over the course of the years. The reality is we struggle to get that licensing rate up to where it should be, and we're not alone in that. This is really a national challenge. We are looking at other things like a dog census, which has been used in some communities to get an idea of where dogs are at and to encourage licensing that way. We are looking at having licensing enforcement officers positioned in certain places. We're trying to make it easier as well for people to get their dogs licensed. We're looking at technology and some online tools where people will be able to scan and to get their license much easier online. So it's a challenge. I think that communicating what the benefits of licensure are is one of the areas where we can improve upon. For instance, if we pick up a dog in the field that's running at large, it's loose, and we see that it has a Kent County license on it, our first stop isn't back to the animal shelter, it's to that home or a call to that home to let them know that we have their licensed dog, and we try to reunite them at that point. There's no fee associated with that. That's part of the benefit of having a license, is it empowers us to do that in the field.
And can you just expand a little bit on what you mentioned about cooperation with veterinarians? They can provide licenses?
They can. They have access to the web-based site that we enter all of our dog license data into. We have a partnership with many of them, and we give them, I think it's like 80 cents or 88 cents per license off of that as some compensation for their time in doing that. They have the licenses there at their shop, and that's been pretty productive over the years as well.
That's optional.
It's optional. It's not required. It's also optional for the townships to offer that as well, and some of them do and some don't.
Commissioner Steck, did you have? Another question?
Thank you, Jerry. Just a follow-up to Commissioner Skaggs' comments about the exception. It strikes me that exception number 1 addresses a public environment where any member of the public is impliedly invited to go on, and so the need for the control of the dog. When you're on private property, which is exception 2, whether it's somebody else's or your own, control is basically keeping the dog on their property. And so I don't think you need to have any, and I'm not sure you could reach into a private property owner and tell them how they do that, as long as they keep the dog on the property.
Thank you.
All right, any other questions or comments on this? Seeing none, we have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed? All right, motion passes. On to item 6, Commissioner Miscellaneous. Do we have any miscellaneous? Commissioner Ponstein.
Just quick, I know I mentioned a meeting ago, you all should have got this packet. It's got the new bylaws for MAC, if you want to take a look at them. If you have any concerns, they'll be voted on at the annual conference in August. It also has the platforms for all the committees, and I know a couple members of the board sit on committees. Just have to keep in mind, it's not a narrow scope. It tries to come up with platforms that affect all 83 counties. And we get input from pretty much all the counties on these committees. So take a look at them. If you have any questions, feel free to call.
Thank you for your service on that board. Any other miscellaneous today? All right, seeing none, we are adjourned.
Good job, Chair.